Jake Morrison slammed his coffee cup down on the marble counter and checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The Phoenix Sky Harbor private jet terminal was having one of those days where everything went wrong. 2 flights had been delayed because of mechanical problems, and 3 wealthy clients had already screamed at him about their precious schedules out at 28 years old. Jake thought he had seen every type of rich person who walked through Elite Airways. There were the tech billionaires who dressed like college students but flew million-dollar jets. There were the oil executives who wore $1,000 suits and treated everyone like servants. And there were the celebrities who expected special treatment just because people knew their faces. Jake had worked at the luxury terminal for 4 years, and he prided himself on reading people the moment they walked in. He could spot a real customer from a wannabe in seconds. Real money moved quietly and confidently. Fake money made noise and tried too hard to impress. The morning sun streamed through the tall glass windows as Jake organized the flight manifests. On his computer, Elite Airways served only the richest clients in the world. Their cheapest flight cost more than most people made in a year. Jake liked telling people that fact, especially when someone walked in who clearly didn't belong. His colleague Lisa Park sat at the desk next to him, handling reservation calls with her usual professional tone. She was 10 years older than Jake, and had been in the aviation business much longer. Sometimes Jake thought she was too nice to difficult customers, but she kept getting positive reviews from clients while Jake got complaints about his attitude. The morning was busy with the usual crowd of corporate executives and international business travelers. Jake processed 3 bookings for flights to London, Dubai, and Tokyo. Each passenger arrived in expensive cars with personal assistants carrying their luggage. This was the world Jake had grown used to, where money talked and everyone else walked around. 11 o'clock, the automatic doors slid open and a man walked in alone. Jake looked up from his computer screen and immediately sized him up. The guy was probably in his 60s, with shoulder-length dark hair that looked like it needed a good cut. He wore simple blue jeans, scuffed brown boots, and a plain black t-shirt that had seen better days. A small green duffel bag hung over his shoulder. Jake nudged Lisa with his elbow and nodded toward the man. She glanced up briefly, then went back to her phone call. Jake watched as the stranger approached the counter, walking with a relaxed pace that suggested he had nowhere important to be. The man stopped in front of Jake's desk and waited patiently while Jake finished typing an email. After making the stranger wait almost a full minute, Jake finally looked up with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Can I help you?" Jake asked, his voice carrying just enough politeness to avoid being rude while making it clear he was doing the man a favor. "I need to book a flight to Geneva," the man said quietly. His voice was calm and even, without any hint of nervousness or aggression. "I need to leave today if possible." Jake almost laughed out loud. This guy looked like he had wandered in from the main terminal by mistake. Geneva was one of their most expensive destinations, especially for same-day booking. The flight alone would cost at least $60,000, not counting ground transportation and other services. "Sir," Jake said, leaning back in his chair and folding his arms, "this is Elite Airways. We provide private jet services for executive and luxury travel. Our flights to Geneva start at $50,000, and that's before additional fees and services." The man nodded without any change in expression. "That's fine. When can I leave?" Jake blinked, momentarily thrown off by the calm response. Most people either left immediately when they heard the prices or started arguing about the cost. This guy just stood there like money was no object. "Well," Jake continued, trying to regain control of the conversation, "we also require advance booking for international flights. Same-day service to Geneva would be ... Jake pretended to check his computer screen. $75,000. "Minimum." "Okay," the man said simply. "Can you check availability?" Jake glanced at Lisa, who was still on her phone call but clearly listening to the conversation. He could see the doubt in her eyes, but Jake was convinced this was just another wannabe trying to waste his time. Maybe the guy was an actor or something, practicing for a role where he played a rich person. "Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification and proof of payment before I can check anything," Jake said, his voice getting slightly sharper. "We don't provide quotes for people who can't actually book flights." The man reached into his back pocket and pulled out a simple black wallet. He placed a driver's license and a credit card on the counter without saying anything. Jake picked up the license and glanced at it, expecting to see some nobody from nowhere. His eyes widened as he read the name. Then he looked at the credit card and saw the same name printed in raised letters. Jake's mouth opened slightly as he looked up at the man's face, really seeing it for the first time. Standing in front of him, dressed like someone's unemployed uncle, was one of the most famous actors in the world. Jake had seen every one of his movies, from the action films to the romantic comedies to the science fiction blockbusters. This was the guy who had been making movies for 30 years and was known around the world for being incredibly nice too. Everyone he met. Jake felt his face turn red as he realized what he had just done. He had been condescending and rude to someone who could probably buy the entire airline with pocket change. Worse, he had been rude to someone famous for being one of the nicest people in Hollywood. Jake stammered, trying to think of something to say that might save the situation. "Mr. Sir, I didn't realize." The man waited patiently while Jake struggled with his words. There was no anger in his expression, no demand for an apology, no threat to call Jake's manager. He just stood there with the same calm, peaceful look he had worn since walking in. Lisa had finished her phone call and was watching the interaction with growing concern. She recognized the customer now too, and Jake could see her shaking her head slightly, as if to say he had really messed up this time. "So," the man said gently, "about that flight to Geneva?" Jake's hands shook slightly as he picked up the credit card. He had made fun of celebrities before, but never to their faces. And definitely never to someone who could afford to have him fired with a single phone call. He tried to steady his breathing as he swiped the card through the payment terminal. The computer screen flickered for a moment, then displayed something Jake had never seen before. Instead of the usual credit approval message, a series of red warning boxes appeared. The text was mostly numbers and letters that made no sense to him. But one thing stood out clearly: Nexus Defense Corporation authorized personnel only. Jake stared at the screen, confused. He had processed thousands of payments over the years, but nothing like this had ever appeared. The credit card looked normal, but the authorization was coming through some kind of special system that his computer barely seemed to understand. "Is there a problem?" the man asked, still maintaining his calm tone. "I know, sir." "Just a moment," Jake replied, trying to figure out what he was looking at. The payment had been approved for the full amount, but there were codes and clearance levels displayed that he had never seen before. Lisa had moved closer to Jake's desk, pretending to organize some papers while watching the transaction. When she saw the screen, her face went pale. She grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him slightly away from the counter. "Jake," she whispered urgently, "that's a Nexus authorization code. What's Nexus?" Jake whispered back, glancing nervously at their customer who was patiently waiting. "My brother works in aerospace defense. Nexus is. They're the company that handles really classified stuff, like government contracts that most people don't even know exist. If someone has a Nexus card, they're not just rich. They're connected to things that normal people never hear about." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was getting worse by the minute. First he had been rude to a famous actor, and now it turned out the actor was also connected to some kind of secret government work. Jake's mind raced as he tried to remember everything he had said and done in the past 10 minutes. The computer screen flashed again. and new text appeared. Priority transport required, Alpha clearance level. Jake had no idea what Alpha clearance meant, but it sounded important. More important than anything he had ever dealt with before. "Sir," Jake said, walking back to the counter and trying to sound professional, "your payment has been approved. I can get you on the next available flight to Geneva. It leaves in about 3 hours." "I need to leave sooner than that," the man replied. "This is urgent." Before Jake could respond, the main entrance doors opened and 2 people in dark business suits walked in. They moved with the kind of confident stride that Jake associated with federal agents or high-level security personnel. The woman was tall with short blonde hair, and the man was younger with dark hair and alert eyes. Both wore earpieces and had the unmistakable look of people who were used to being in control. The woman approached Jake's desk while the man positioned himself near the entrance. She pulled out a leather wallet and flashed some kind of official identification. "Agent Patricia Stone, Nexus Security," she said in a crisp professional voice. "We're here regarding the priority transport request." Jake's mouth went dry. He looked at Lisa, who was standing frozen behind her desk, then back at Agent Stone. This was definitely not a normal Tuesday morning at Elite Airways. "Agent Ryan Cruz," the man by the door said, introducing himself with a nod. "We apologize for the short notice, but we need to expedite this flight immediately." Jake tried to process what was happening. The famous actor was apparently not just a celebrity, but someone important enough to have federal agents escort him to flights. The Nexus authorization on his credit card was clearly more significant than Jake had realized. "Of course," Jake said, his voice slightly higher than normal. "I can arrange immediate departure. We have a jet that can be ready in 30 minutes. Agent Stone turned to the man who had started this whole confusing situation. "Mr. Reeves, your transport will be ready shortly. We've cleared all air traffic control priorities for direct routing to Geneva." Jake's eyes widened as he heard the agent use the customer's last name. He had recognized him as a famous actor, but hearing the name spoken aloud by a federal agent made everything feel even more surreal. "Thank you," Mr. Reeves replied to Agent Stone. Then he turned back to Jake. "I appreciate your help with the arrangements." Jake couldn't believe it. After being rude and dismissive, after clearly not recognizing him immediately, after making him wait while questioning whether he could afford the flight, the man was still being polite and thanking him. Agent Cruz walked over to join the conversation. "Mr. Morrison," he said, reading Jake's name tag, "we need to ensure that all details of this transaction remain confidential. The nature of Mr. Reeves' travel is classified information." "Classified?" Jake repeated, feeling more confused by the "fanwa" minute. "Mr. Reeves serves as a civilian liaison for certain government operations," Agent Stone explained. "His meeting in Geneva involves matters of national security. We trust that you understand the importance of discretion." Lisa moved closer, her curiosity overriding her nervousness. "Is this about the aerospace projects my brother works on?" she asked. "He's mentioned Nexus before, but he can't talk about what they do." Agent Stone and Agent Cruz exchanged a glance. "Your brother works for Nexus?" Agent Stone asked. "He's an engineer with the Deep Space Monitoring Division," Lisa replied. "He's been working a lot of overtime lately, but he won't tell me why." Agent Cruz nodded slowly. "Then you understand that some information needs to stay private. What happens here today is part of something much larger than a simple flight booking." Jake looked at Mr. Reeves, trying to understand how a Hollywood actor fit into government secrets and classified meetings. The man seemed so normal, so calm, like none of this was unusual for him. Jake had always thought celebrities lived in a different world from regular people, but this was something else entirely. "The flight will be ready in 20 minutes, Jake said, checking his computer. "Direct to Geneva. Priority clearance. Perfect," Agent Stone said. "Mr. Reeves will escort you to the aircraft." As they prepared to leave, Mr. Reeves turned back to Jake one more time. "Thank you for your patience," he said with a small smile. "I know this isn't exactly routine." Jake watched them walk toward the private boarding area, still trying to process everything that had just happened. What had started as a normal day of booking luxury flights had turned into something that felt like a spy movie. Jake stood frozen behind his desk, watching the three figures walk toward the boarding area. His mind was spinning with questions he didn't know how to ask. Lisa moved closer to him, her face pale with worry and confusion. "Jake," she whispered, "what do you think is really going on here?" Before Jake could answer, Agent Stone stopped and turned back toward them. She walked back to the counter with measured steps, her expression serious but not unfriendly. "Mr. Morrison, this park," she said, glancing at Lisa's name tag. "I think you both deserve some explanation for what you've witnessed today. This situation is unusual, and your discretion is important." Jake nodded quickly, still feeling overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 20 minutes. Agent Stone looked around the terminal to make sure no other customers were within hearing distance, then continued speaking in a low voice. "What I'm about to tell you is classified information, but given your involvement today and Miss Park's family connection to Nexus, you need to understand why this matters," Agent Stone began. "Mr. Reeves isn't just an actor. For the past 10 years, he has been serving as a civilian liaison for a special government program." "What kind of program?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Agent Stone paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "The Nexus Defense Corporation manages America's most advanced space monitoring and defense systems. We track objects in space, analyze potential threats, and prepare responses to situations that most people never need to know about." Jake felt his legs go weak. Space defense? He had thought this was just about some kind of military contract or government consulting work. But space defense sounded like something from a science fiction movie. 3 days ago, Agent Stone continued, our deep space monitoring stations detected something unusual. Structured radio signals coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. These aren't natural cosmic background radiation or random space noise. They appear to be artificially created. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. Her brother had been working overtime for weeks, and now she was starting to understand why. "You mean signals from aliens?" she asked. "We don't know what they are yet," Agent Stone replied. "But they're definitely not coming from any human source. The signals show patterns and mathematical structures that suggest intelligence behind them." Jake sank into his chair, trying to process this information. Aliens. Actual aliens might be trying to communicate with Earth, and somehow the famous actor he had just been rude to is involved in humanity's response. Agent Cruz approached from the boarding area. "The aircraft is ready," he said to Agent Stone. Then he looked at Jake and Lisa. "I assume you're briefing them on the situation?" "They needed to understand why today matters," Agent Stone replied. "Ms. Park's brother is on the engineering team that first detected the signals, and Mr. Morrison just handled the booking for one of our most important civilian coordinators." "Civilian coordinators?" Jake asked, finding his voice again. "People like Mr. Reeves," Agent Cruz explained. "We learned early in the Nexus program that if we ever received contact from another intelligent species, our response couldn't just come from military leaders and scientists. We needed people who could represent the best of human nature. People who could stay calm under pressure, treat others with respect, and make good decisions in extraordinary circumstances." Jake thought about how Mr. Reeves had remained perfectly polite and patient even when Jake was being dismissive and rude. Even when federal agents arrived and everyone was talking about classified information, he had stayed calm and thanked Jake for his help. "His meeting in Geneva isn't just any meeting," Agent Stone continued. It's an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Representatives from every major nation are gathering to discuss how humanity should respond to these signals. Do we try to respond? Do we prepare for the possibility of contact? These are decisions that will affect every person on Earth. Lisa looked stunned. And Mr. Reeves is part of making those decisions? His role is to provide input on human psychology and behavior, Agent Cruz explained. For 10 years, he's been traveling around the world, observing how people react to unexpected situations, how they handle stress, how they treat strangers, how they adapt to change. All of that information helps us understand whether humanity is ready for contact with another species. Jake suddenly understood why his interaction with Mr. Reeves might matter. Was I being tested? He asked. Agent Stone smiled slightly. Not intentionally. But your reaction today is exactly the kind of human behavior that gets reported and analyzed. You made assumptions based on appearance, then had to adjust your thinking when you learned new information. That's a very human trait, and it's important. Data for understanding how our species might react to meeting aliens. But I was rude to him, Jake said, feeling ashamed again. And then you recognized your mistake and tried to correct it, Agent Cruz pointed out. That's also very human. The ability to learn and adapt quickly is one of humanity's greatest strengths. Agent Stone checked her watch. We need to go. The Geneva meeting starts in 6 hours, and there are representatives flying in from around the world. But I want both of you to understand something important. She looked directly at Jake and Lisa. What happened here today matters. Every interaction Mr. Reeves has with ordinary people helps us understand human nature. Your brothers. Work detecting those signals, Ms. Park, is helping us prepare for the most important moment in human history. And Mr. Morrison, your job booking flights for people like Mr. Reeves is part of the infrastructure that keeps our civilization running. Jake felt a strange mix of pride and responsibility. His job had always seemed trivial compared to what important people were doing in the world. But apparently, even booking flights could be part of something bigger than he had imagined. The signals from Proxima Centauri are still being analyzed, Agent Cruz said. We don't know if they're a greeting, warning, or just aliens talking among themselves without knowing we exist. But whatever they are, humanity needs to be ready to respond wisely. Agent Stone started walking back toward the boarding area. Remember, she called back to them, everything you've heard today is classified. But you should also remember that you're part of something important. Every human being is part of preparing our species for what might come next. Jake watched them disappear through the boarding gate with Mr. Reeves. In a few minutes, the plane would take off for Geneva, carrying someone who would help decide humanity's response to possible alien contact. And it had all started with Jake being rude to a customer who looked like he couldn't afford a plane ticket. Jake and Lisa stood in silence for several minutes after the agents and Mr. Reeves disappeared into the boarding area. The normal sounds of the airport continued around them, but everything felt different now. Other passengers walked by, completely unaware that humanity might be on the verge of making contact with aliens. Lisa was the first to speak. I need to call my brother, she said, reaching for her phone. Wait, Jake said, grabbing her arm gently. They said it was classified. Maybe. You shouldn't. Lisa paused, then put her phone back in her pocket. You're right, but this explains so much. Tony has been working 16-hour days for months. He keeps coming home exhausted and stressed, but he won't tell me anything about his projects. Now, I know why. Jake sat back down at his desk, trying to process everything he had learned. The computer screen still showed the Nexus authorization codes from Mr. Reeves' payment. Those mysterious numbers and letters now represented something much more significant than a simple credit card transaction. Do you think it's real? Jake asked. I mean, aliens actually trying to talk to us? My brother is one of the smartest people I know, Lisa replied. If he's working this hard on something, it's real. And those agents didn't seem like they were making things up. Jake thought about Agent Stone's explanation of why people like Mr. Reeves were chosen as civilian liaisons. The idea that someone was studying human behavior to help prepare for alien contact seemed like something from a movie, but it also made sense in a strange way. She said Mr. Reeves has been observing people for 10 years, Jake said. Do you think he's been taking notes on everyone he meets? Maybe not notes, Lisa said, but probably remembering how people act. Think about it. He travels all over the world for movies, meets thousands of people, and everyone always says he's incredibly nice to fans and workers. Maybe that's part of his job. Jake felt embarrassed again, thinking about his behavior earlier. If Mr. Reeves really was studying human reactions, Jake had given him a perfect example of human prejudice and rudeness. But Agent Cruz had said that Jake's ability to recognize his mistake and change his attitude was also important. The phone at Lisa's desk rang, interrupting their conversation. She answered with her usual professional tone, but Jake could hear the distraction in her voice as she helped a customer book a flight to Los Angeles. Everything seemed so normal and routine, but Jake now knew that underneath the ordinary world, extraordinary things were happening. After Lisa finished the call, Jake asked, "What do you think makes humans special? I mean, if there really are aliens out there, what would make them want to talk to us?" Lisa thought for a moment. Maybe it's exactly what Agent Cruz said. We adapt quickly. Think about human history. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, natural disasters. Every time something terrible happens, humans figure out how to keep going. Jake nodded. And we're curious. We explore everywhere. We went to the moon just to see what was there. We send robots to Mars. We build telescopes to look at distant stars. Plus we're social, Lisa added. We form groups, we share information, we help each other. Look at how my brother works with engineers from around the world. Or how Mr. Reeves can work with government agents and also be nice to airport employees. As they talked, Jake began to understand what Agent Stone meant about human strengths. Humans weren't the strongest or fastest or smartest species on Earth, but they were incredibly good at working together and adapting to change. Do you think other species might be different? Jake asked. Like, maybe they evolved on planets where everything was always the same, so they don't know how to handle new situations? That's possible, Lisa said. Earth has always been dangerous and unpredictable. Earthquakes, storms, climate changes, asteroid impacts. Species that survived here had to be flexible and tough. Jake thought about his own reaction to meeting Mr. Reeves. At first, he had made assumptions based on appearance and treated him badly. But when he learned new information, he immediately started trying to fix his mistake. Maybe that ability to quickly change behavior when circumstances changed was exactly what made humans valuable. Agent Stone said every interaction matters, Jake said. Like, how I treated Mr. Reeves gives them information about human nature. That's kind of scary and amazing at the same time. It means everyone is important, Lisa replied. Not just famous people or scientists or government leaders. Regular people like us are part of how humanity gets judged. The boarding area door opened and Agent Stone walked back into the terminal. She approached their desk with a more relaxed expression than before. "The flight has departed," she said. "Mr. Reeves is on his way to Geneva, and your assistance was very helpful." "Agent Stone," Lisa said hesitantly, "can I ask you something? How long have you known about the signals from space?" "The first signals were detected 72 hours ago," Agent Stone replied. "But we've been preparing for this possibility for 20 years. The Nexus program was created because scientists always believed we would eventually detect signs of intelligent life in the universe. Jake found the courage to ask his own question. What happens if the aliens are hostile? What if they're coming here to hurt us? Agent Stone's expression became serious but not frightened. That's one of the scenarios we've prepared for. But, based on the signal analysis so far, they don't appear to be threatening. The mathematical pattern suggests they might be trying to establish peaceful communication. But you don't know for sure, Lisa said. No, we don't, Agent Stone admitted. That's why people like Mr. Reeves are so important. If we do make contact, we need to respond in a way that shows the best of human nature. We need to demonstrate that we're a species worth talking to. Jake thought about Mr. Reeves' calm, respectful behavior even when Jake was being rude. That probably was exactly the kind of response that would make a good impression on aliens. The Geneva meeting will last 3 days, Agent Stone continued. Representatives will discuss different scenarios and prepare response protocols. But, ultimately, if aliens want to communicate with us, the success of that communication will depend on ordinary humans, like both of you behaving with wisdom and kindness. Agent Stone handed them each a business card. If you ever see anything unusual, or if you need to contact Nexus for any reason, use this number. And remember, you're now part of humanity's preparation for the most important moment in our species. History. As Agent Stone walked away, Jake looked at the business card. It was simple and black, with just a phone number and the Nexus logo. But holding it made him feel connected to something much bigger than booking luxury flights. The rest of the day passed slowly for Jake and Lisa. They tried to focus on their normal work, helping customers book flights and handling routine paperwork. But their minds kept returning to the conversation with Agent Stone and the incredible information they had learned. Around 4 in the afternoon, Jake's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The message was simple. Report to Conference Room B at 5 p.m. Bring Ms. Park. P. Stone. Jake showed the message to Lisa, who looked nervous but curious. Conference Room B was a private meeting space at the back of the terminal that was usually reserved for VIP clients or airline executives. At exactly 5 o'clock, they walked to the conference room and knocked on the door. Agent Stone opened it and invited them inside. The room was small but comfortable, with a round table and several chairs. Agent Cruz was there too, along with a woman they hadn't met before. This is Dr. Sarah Kim, Agent Stone said, introducing the new person. She's a behavioral psychologist who works with the Nexus program. Dr. Kim was a middle-aged Asian woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She shook hands with both Jake and Lisa before they all sat down at the table. I asked you both here because something interesting happened today, Agent Stone began. Your interaction with Mr. Reeves was observed and recorded by our security systems, and Dr. Kim has been analyzing it. Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had hoped that his rudeness to Mr. Reeves might be forgotten, but apparently it was being studied by government psychologists. Don't worry, Dr. Kim said, seeming to sense Jake's anxiety. You're not in trouble. In fact, your behavior today represents exactly the kind of human response we need to understand. I don't understand, Jake said. I was rude to him. I made assumptions and treated him badly. Yes, you did, Dr. Kim agreed. And then what happened? Jake thought about it. When I realized who he was and that I had made a mistake, I tried to fix it. I became more helpful and professional. Exactly, Dr. Kim said with a smile. You demonstrated one of humanity's most important traits. When presented with new information that contradicted your initial assumptions, you immediately adjusted. Your behavior, Lisa leaned forward. Is that unusual? Very unusual, Agent Cruz replied. Most intelligent species that we've theorized about would likely evolve in more stable environments. They might develop rigid thinking patterns that worked well in predictable situations, but couldn't adapt quickly to change. Dr. Kim pulled out a tablet and showed them some charts and graphs. We've been studying human behavior for decades, preparing for the possibility of contact with other intelligent species. What we've learned is that humans have several traits that make them uniquely valuable. Like what? Jake asked, genuinely curious now. First, you're incredibly adaptable, Dr. Kim explained. Humans can live in deserts, forests, mountains, cities, and even space stations. You eat different foods, speak different languages, and practice different customs, but you're all the same species. That's remarkable. Agent Stone nodded. Second, you're naturally curious. Humans explore everything. You climb mountains just to see what's at the top. You dive to the bottom of oceans. You send spacecraft to other planets. That drive to explore and learn is rare. Third, Agent Cruz added, you're cooperative across genetic lines. Most species cooperate only with close relatives. But humans form alliances with strangers, share resources with people they've never met, and work together on projects that benefit everyone. Dr. Kim pointed to her tablet screen. Today, Jake, you showed all three traits in one short interaction. When your assumptions proved wrong, you adapted. When you realized you were dealing with something unusual, you became curious rather than afraid. And when agents arrived with authority, you cooperated instead of becoming defensive. Jake had never thought of his behavior in those terms. To him, it had just seemed like common sense to be helpful once he understood the situation. But I was still rude at first, Jake protested. That doesn't seem like something to be proud of. The initial rudeness isn't the important part, Dr. Kim explained. Every species makes mistakes and misjudgments. What matters is what happens next. Some species might become more stubborn when challenged. Others might become aggressive. But humans typically try to correct their mistakes and improve the situation. Lisa had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. Are you saying that what happened today was actually a test? Agent Stone and Dr. Kim exchanged glances. Not intentionally, Agent Stone said. Mr. Reeves really did need to get to Geneva for the emergency meeting. But every interaction he has with civilians provides us with data about human behavior. So I was being observed without knowing it? Jake asked. The security cameras in this terminal are always recording, Agent Cruz said. But today's interaction became significant because it happened at such an important moment. While Mr. Reeves was preparing to help make decisions about humanity's response to possible alien contact, he was also experiencing a perfect example of typical human behavior. Dr. Kim leaned back in her chair. Jake, your reaction today will be included in the report that goes to the Geneva meeting. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you demonstrated human adaptability under stress. What kind of stress? Jake asked. Think about it, Dr. Kim said. You had to quickly process several challenging pieces of information. First, that someone you had misjudged was actually famous. Then, that he was connected to classified government work. Then, that federal agents were involved. Each time, you had to adjust your understanding and change your behavior accordingly. Lisa nodded slowly. And you handled it all without panicking or becoming hostile. Exactly, Agent Stone said. That's a very human response. Quick adaptation, maintained cooperation, and willingness to learn from mistakes. Jake felt a strange sense of pride mixed with responsibility. His ordinary workday had somehow become part of humanity's preparation for alien contact. What happens now? Lisa asked. Now we wait, Agent Cruz replied. The Geneva meeting will continue for 2 more days. Scientists around the world are still analyzing the signals from Proxima Centauri. We don't know if aliens will try to make direct contact, or if they even know we exist. Dr. Kim closed her tablet. But if contact does happen, reports like today's help us understand how humans are likely to respond. That information helps our leaders make better decisions about how to represent our species. Remember, Agent Stone said as they prepared to leave, you're both now part of this process. Your behavior, your choices, your treatment of others all contribute to the picture of humanity that we present to the universe." As they walked back to their desks, Jake realized that his job would never feel the same again. Every customer interaction, every decision, every moment of kindness or rudeness was now part of something much larger than he had ever imagined. 2 days later, Jake arrived at work with a completely different perspective on his job. Every customer who walked through the doors now seemed like a potential part of something bigger. He found himself paying attention to how people treated each other, how they reacted to unexpected situations, and how they handled stress. Lisa was already at her desk when Jake sat down. She had been unusually quiet since their meeting with Dr. Kim, and Jake could tell she was thinking deeply about everything they had learned. "Any word from Geneva?" Jake asked quietly. Lisa shook her head. "Nothing official, but I did some research last night. Did you know that Proxima Centauri is only 4 light years away? If someone there is trying to communicate with us, their signals would take 4 years to reach Earth." Jake thought about that. So if they sent those signals 4 years ago, they might not even know if we received them yet. Exactly. And if we send a response, it would take another 4 years to reach them. This isn't going to be a quick conversation. The morning started with normal business. Jake helped a tech executive book a flight to Tokyo, and Lisa arranged transportation for a family flying to London. But Jake found himself treating each customer with extra care and attention. He remembered Dr. Kim's words about how every human interaction contributed to understanding their species. Around noon, Jake's computer screen flashed with an incoming message. It was from Agent Stone. "Mr. Reeves returning from Geneva at 3 p.m. Please prepare for priority arrival." Jake showed the message to Lisa. "I wonder what they decided in those meetings." "Maybe we'll find out," Lisa replied. At exactly 3 o'clock, a sleek private jet landed on the runway outside their terminal. Jake watched through the large windows as the aircraft taxied to the VIP boarding area. A few minutes later, Agent Stone and Agent Cruz entered the terminal, followed by Mr. Reeves. The actor looked tired but calm. He walked over to Jake's desk. With the same relaxed pace he had shown 3 days earlier, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "Thank you for arranging the flight," Mr. Reeves said to Jake. "Everything went smoothly. How did the meetings go, sir?" Jake asked, unable to contain his curiosity. Mr. Reeves glanced at Agent Stone, who nodded slightly. "They went well. We made some important decisions about how to proceed." Agent Cruz approached the desk. "We have some news we can share with both of you, given your involvement in this situation." Jake and Lisa waited anxiously as Agent Stone pulled out her tablet. "The Geneva meeting concluded this morning," she began. "Representatives from 43 nations agreed on a unified response protocol for the Proxima Centauri signals." "What kind of response?" Lisa asked. "We're going to send a reply," Agent Cruz said. "A carefully crafted message that represents the best of human civilization. It will include mathematical concepts, basic information about Earth and humanity, and expressions of peaceful intent." Mr. Reeves sat down in the chair next to Jake's desk. "But more importantly, we're going to continue preparing for the possibility of eventual contact. The signals might be the beginning of a very long conversation." Agent Stone turned her tablet toward them, showing a complex diagram. "The message will be transmitted from radio telescopes around the world. It will take 4 years to reach Proxima Centauri, and if anyone there responds, their reply will take another 4 years to get back to us." 8 years total, Jake said, trying to imagine waiting that long for an answer. "At minimum," Agent Cruz confirmed. "But this is just the beginning." The Geneva meeting also established new protocols for studying human behavior and preparing our species for potential contact. Dr. Kim appeared from the boarding area, carrying a briefcase and looking satisfied. She joined the group at Jake's desk. The behavioral analysis reports were very well received, she said to Jake and Lisa. Your interaction, along with hundreds of others we've documented, helped convince the international representatives that humanity is ready for this challenge. What did you tell them about us? Jake asked nervously. That humans demonstrate remarkable adaptability, curiosity, and cooperation, Dr. Kim replied. That you can quickly adjust to new information, work together across cultural boundaries, and maintain dignity even in stressful situations. Mr. Reeves smiled. Your reaction 3 days ago, Jake, was actually mentioned specifically in the final report. The way you recognized your mistake and immediately tried to correct it was cited as an example of human flexibility and growth. Jake felt his face turn red, but this time it was from pride rather than embarrassment. I just tried to do my job better once I understood the situation. That's exactly the point, Agent Stone said. Most species probably wouldn't be able to adapt that quickly. They might become defensive or stick to their original assumptions, but humans learn and change. Lisa had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. What happens to people like us? I mean, regular people who know about this now. Agent Cruz exchanged glances with the others. You become part of the network. There are thousands of people around the world who know about the signals and the response efforts. Scientists, government officials, military personnel, and civilians like yourselves. We're all working together to prepare humanity for what might be the most important moment in our species' history, Dr. Kim added. Every person who knows about this has a responsibility to represent the best of human nature. Agent Stone stood up, which brings us to why we're here. We want to offer both of you positions within the Nexus program. Jake's mouth fell open. Jobs? Consulting positions, Agent Cruz clarified. You would continue working here, but you would also help us observe and report on human behavior. We need people in ordinary jobs who can recognize significant interactions and patterns. Lisa looked excited. Would we work with my brother? Different departments, but yes, you'd be part of the same organization. Dr. Kim confirmed. Mr. Reeves stood up and extended his hand to Jake. Thank you for your help and for being exactly the kind of human we need representing our species. As they shook hands, Jake realized that his life had changed completely in just 3 days. He had started the week thinking his job was just about booking flights for rich people. Now he was being offered a chance to help prepare humanity for contact with aliens. One more thing, Agent Stone said as they prepared to leave. The next time someone walks into this terminal looking like they don't belong, remember that appearances can be deceiving. You never know who might be carrying the future of humanity. Jake watched them leave, then looked out the window at the planes taking off and landing. Somewhere out there, signals were traveling through space at the speed of light, carrying messages between worlds. And somehow, his small part in this story mattered. He turned to Lisa, who was grinning widely. So, he said, want to help save the world? I thought we already started, she replied.